I don't know why you do the countdown. It's really not necessary. I like counting. It's not. This isn't live, and I edit it anyway.
I know that you do, but your editing is bad, so I count in so that you.
All right.
Fuck it.
This is Hive Minds, and we're today going to talk about Stranger Things.
I'm
Pat, and this is Colin.
Hey.
And so last time we talked about The Mummy, which you had seen and I had not. So this time I assigned you Stranger Things, which I had seen probably 3 times already by the time we watched it together, and what you had watched like half of it.
Yeah, I had watched up to like episode...
I want to say like 4 or 5.
5, I think. I got to the point where I really liked Action Cop.
So that's our name for David Harbour's character, Hopper.
He's Action Cop.
He's pretty amazing.
But yeah, I had watched up to like episode 5, and I really liked it. Like it really is like it was my jam. Like I love that kind of genre. But
and there's only 8 episodes. Is that right?
Yeah, 8 episodes.
Yeah. So we watched the last 3 or 4 episodes together a few weeks ago, and now we're talking about it. I had seen the show. So it came out July 2016. We're recording this in October 2017. Hopefully going to release it around the time that season 2 of Stranger Things comes out. So that'll be cool. And we'll definitely, almost certainly, do a podcast on Stranger Things season 2 once we've seen it.
Unless it sucks, and then we.
Well, if it sucks, I think that would make for a good podcast too. Actually, if it's bad, there would be a lot to talk about.
Then if it's mediocre, we probably won't talk about it. But I doubt it. Things are shaping up to be pretty great.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good already. So basically, I remember several of my friends recommending it like very soon after it came out, and all I knew is that I saw horror in the tags and was like, nope, don't want to watch that. Too scared. Like
to preference this for anyone who doesn't know, Patrick is a bit of a little bitch. It's he can't help it, but normally in any other case I would argue with you on calling me a little bitch, but when it comes to horror movies, you are 100% right. I am so easily terrified of horror movies. And to put it in perspective, I'm kind of the opposite. I love horror movies, and I can't remember the last time I was actually scared by a movie, a book, a video game, anything.
See, I don't... on the one hand, I envy you for not being scared of horror movies, but on the other hand, I almost feel bad for you, because you don't get the full experience, whereas I see any even slightly scary thing, and I poop my pants. Like, it doesn't take much.
It is legitimately kind of disappointing sometimes, because, like, it is weird to see other people, like, having fun getting scared. And, like, I love horror movies. I love the feeling of watching them. But, like, I'm never scared, and I've never really been scared by them ever since I actually started watching them, so.
But anyway, we'll probably come back to more general discussion on horror movies later. But really, Stranger Things isn't that much of a horror show. To me, anyway. It was not nearly as scary as I thought it would be. There's, like, probably one jump scare in the first episode that like got me the first time. Like, ooh, like it's the one where he's riding his bike down the road in the very first episode, and within the first like 15 minutes of the show, and the monster Flash appears as a shadow in the road, and that really got me. But like after that, there's really no sort of jump scares or anything like that. It's a lot more adventurous, a lot more.
It's urban fantasy. Like, I would argue it's not even really horror. And a lot of horror things, like, we're going to talk about this later on, probably, but, like, the new It isn't so much horror. It has horror aspects, but it's really urban fantasy. Like, that's really the genre we're dealing with. And I think a lot of newer horror things fit into that. Not all of them. Movies like The Conjuring don't. Like, those are just straight horror. Yeah. But, like, Stranger Things, it's...
Would Super 8 be kind of like that?
Super 8 to some extent.
I never saw Super 8, but like it seemed like that kind of Spielbergian throwback.
Yeah,
that
like E.T.
Stranger Things
is also kind of in that place where it's like it's really urban fantasy. It's not, there might be some spooky things happening,
Are there spooky things in E.T.?
E.T. has...
I haven't seen E.T.
I think as a kid there was like... I remember watching it and being like... There was a soccer ball scene that freaked me out.
What is E.T.? What's E.T. short for?
I don't know, Pat. What's E.T. short for?
You're supposed to...
Oh, extraterrestrial.
No, it's because he has little legs.
Yeah, haha, how good is that? I haven't heard that one before, audience. God.
I'm not playing that. I'm not playing that up for the mic. That joke genuinely. I like that.
Anyways, but yeah. So Stranger Things is not. If anyone's like not watching it because they're afraid of horror things,
yeah,
you can trust me.
Don't worry about it.
You're fine. You can watch it. It's great. I'm trying to think of moments that are genuinely scary. And there are like. There's a couple scenes that are creepy, but all in all, the characters are too competent to feel very scared for them.
That's
like even the kids.
That's kind of surprisingly true. I'd never thought about that. The kids are way more competent than most horror movie protagonists. they deal with the situation in really like they do smart things, but not things that a kid wouldn't think to do. Yeah.
Shout out, by the way, the actors in this are, everyone knows it, they're fantastic.
Yeah. So before we get into more specific conversation and maybe spoilers and that sort of thing, just generally, what did you think of Stranger Things?
I think it was fantastic. It's probably the best thing I've seen on Netflix. I might buy Netflix again to watch season 2. Which is, congratulations, Netflix. That's exactly what they want. But it worked. I think it's one of the best things produced by Netflix. It's probably one of the best things that came out last year.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I had seen it before you did, and I was pretty excited to show you, even though I knew you had already seen half of it. But I was like, this is I know you're gonna. I'm pretty certain that you're gonna like this. Like, we should definitely watch this, and like. Yeah, it's a really good show.
It really is exactly my jam.
And there is a lot to talk about with it that we might not get into every detail. And although I think something we should talk about is what we think might happen in season 2, like predictions for season 2. I mean, have you seen the trailers and stuff?
I have seen the trailer. By the way, great trailer music. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Season 2 Stranger Things trailer. If anything, gives away a little, a little much, I feel like. But
God,
damn, I
don't even care.
That's a great trailer. That is a fantastic trailer.
That's solid.
But yeah. So immediate takeaway: Stranger Things is great, and we both recommend it for sure.
I mean, 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up as high as they go.
So if you haven't seen it, that's your cue to go and watch it right now, especially before season 2 comes out. But I guess with that, we'll just move into talking about it in general.
So, and, I would say...
spoilers from here on out.
Spoiler warning, but honestly, I doubt we're going to get too spoilery.
Probably not. I mean...
Regardless, spoiler warning for the thing that's a year old that everyone saw.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the actors.
Oh, yeah.
Because we already kind of talked about this. Everyone is bringing their A game in this, which is remarkable. Like, the fact that kids did so well makes me kind of mad.
Some of the best like up and coming child actors that I can think of. I don't know of many other child actors that I would consider good. I don't know of any other child actors really who have the kid. Ironically, the other ones, the kids from It. That's actually true. We'll get to that. But like everyone does a fantastic job in this. The other impressive thing about that is that pretty much all no-name actors, like all, as far as I know, new people, except for the lone exception of Winona Ryder and Matthew Modine, who is the guy, the doctor, Dr. Brenner. Dr. Evil. Yeah, Dr. Bad Guy. He, I don't know how prolific of a career he's actually had, because the only thing I know him from is Private Joker in Full Metal Jacket. Oh wow! That's him. He's the one who who does the war cry.
I've never seen.
You haven't seen Full Metal Jacket?
No.
Oh shit. Okay, well, that's gonna be one at some point. That's gonna be an episode later. Is Full Metal Jacket?
Write it down now.
He's in Full Metal Jacket. I don't know what else he's been in, but I assume he's had a reasonably successful career. But pretty much everybody else. I mean, David Harbour to me is the standout. He's action cop.
Action cop. He's fantastic.
And he also is looking like he's going to have a promising career. He's new Hellboy.
Be Hellboy. Oh.
Which, if you've seen the pictures for the new Hellboy,
he's perfect.
He does look really good, but it's a little weird because they kind of just made him look like Ron Perlman. They just kind of replicated Ron Perlman with the makeup there. It's like I kind of was hoping he'd have somewhat of a different look.
Well, I mean that's partially because of how good
Ron Perlman.
Yeah, his Hellboy is really
kind of
defining on the nose. Great. Anyone who hasn't seen Hellboy, it's also urban fantasy.
That's true.
Yeah. A lot of comics and stuff are urban fantasy.
I had never heard of the genre urban fantasy until you said it like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I had never heard of that as a specific genre. I've heard of, fantasy and fantasy that takes place in an urban or in Stranger Things' case, suburban environment, but like I never thought of that as a genre in and of itself. But I can totally see that it could be.
I would say it's actually funny, going on a quick tangent. I used to hate urban fantasy.
Really?
It used to be. I love fantasy. I always have. Audience. I play D&D, all kinds of nerdy stuff.
Yeah, he's a huge nerd.
I'm super into it. Like what Pat is on video games, that's what I am on like role playing games and stuff like that.
Yep.
And throughout all of my life, I've always loved like wizards.
Hold on, there's a fucking stink bug on me.
I've always loved wizards and magic and all that fun stuff. But I always hated the idea of like anything taking place in the modern day. It just bothered me, And then I read a book series.
Is it Fables?
Called The Dresden Files.
Oh shit, even more obscure.
I mean, The Dresden Files is pretty big. I'm sure a lot of people have at least heard of it. But it is, it really made me like turn around on urban fantasy. And now it's easily my favorite genre. I just love the idea of it. It really appeals to me. But yeah, for those of you who don't
Well, so what makes Stranger Things urban fantasy? Like
the fact that it takes place in what is ostensibly modern day or very close to it. I mean, it's the 80s. There's something very fantastical happening, but the characters aren't fantastic.
Right.
So, like the kids are just people. Even if they were able to do something weird, like even Eleven, who, she's psychic, she's still a person. She's like fantastic, but she's still human. Like she's still, mostly a person. You can relate to them, you can understand them. That's kind of a staple of urban fantasy. It's kind of like the idea of like you could wake up one day hearing a noise in your backyard, and you look out, you would see something weird, something unknown, something freaky.
Yeah.
That's kind of a staple of urban fantasy, and that's what these kind of series invoke. Like when you watch Stranger Things, like it's all taking place in this shadowy, this town with a shadowy government, institution that's doing things, and it's the kind of thing that you could think like, wow, maybe this could happen in my town. Like maybe this is a thing that could just happen. And that's kind of a staple of urban fantasy.
Okay. Yeah, I do like that aspect of Stranger Things. How the world feels very real, but it's got those in sort of that fantastical sci-fi stuff sort of injected into there, and that lets you it makes the world feel a lot more believable, a lot more real, which is cool. Anyway, we were talking about the cast, right?
Yeah, and it is important to note that, like, as you said, these are all, like, relative newcomers, which I think added to the experience, because, like, I didn't know any of these people, so they really did they were their people.
That's like, true. Even Winona Ryder, who is pretty famous and I have seen in other things, I don't think I actually immediately recognized her, even.
I didn't.
I definitely, and once I found out it was her, I was like, that is Winona Ryder. Wow, I hadn't even thought of it because the world and the characters feel so real because there aren't really any other recognizable names. There's no Tom Cruise. When you see Tom Cruise in a movie, you don't immediately go. You don't go, ooh, I wonder what the deal is with this character. You go, oh, who's Tom Cruise being today?
Yeah.
You know? That was definitely not the case here. And the kid actors, we said it before, but like,
I don't
absolutely incredible.
I don't know
what's
what's going on with kid actors, but they really are just like all around better than they were in the past. It has to be something about like the way directing is working now.
And we've got Finn. Finn's the actor. I was gonna talk about the characters. Actually, do we remember all the kid characters' names? Mike is the main kid. He befriends Eleven, and if anything, his role is kind of the most not generic, but like the
simple.
He's got the simplest role. He's the main kid who well, actually, yeah. He's
the if there's anyone who is the main character, it's probably him.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's kind of hard because it does jump around with a large cast of characters, and they're all important. But if anyone is the main character, it's Mike.
Generally, throughout most of the series, there's, I want to say, like 3 or 4 main story threads. Basically, you follow the kids, which is the group of 3 D&D kids whose 4th kid got
kidnapped by a spooky monster.
Yeah, by a scary monster. They befriend the psychic girl 11, and they're going around doing their kid.
They're trying to save their friend.
They're going around ripping off It.
Yeah, well, they're going around
ripping off It and the Goonies.
Yeah,
more or less. In a good way, not ripping off in a bad way.
They're also probably, if there's any one story you have to watch to understand what's happening, probably theirs is the most important.
Theirs is the most key because they're the only ones who have a concrete piece of the story, which is 11. The rest of them, the other main story threads that you follow are basically the teenagers, which is John and Nancy. John and Nancy. And the adults, which is Action Cop and Winona Ryder.
Jim and Joyce.
Sure, Jim, yeah.
But it's also important to note that the kids, the reason why I think the kids have like probably the strongest of all the stories is the kids, surprisingly.
Yeah.
It's because they're able to like relate everything to really simple terms, kind of how kids would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Usually using D&D in this, like that's the big. They use D&D to communicate ideas.
I really like that because it's something that kids would do, and it's also something I feel like you don't see enough in a lot of things in media involving kids. A lot of the time, kids in media will either talk like adults because an adult is writing them and doesn't know how to write kids, or they'll talk like idiots because
adults assume kids are idiots.
Yeah, because that's how a bad writer thinks kids are. They think they're just dumb adults. But like kids have a very different way of looking at the world, and you really get that from these characters. The way that they contextualize everything is through D&D and Lord of the Rings terms.
Yeah.
I mean, Mirkwood is the name of the street, and they call the monster the Demogorgon. Actually, I'm surprised they didn't just call the other place, the other side. I'm surprised they didn't just call that the Veil of Shadows, since that's the D&D term. Instead, they call it the Upside Down, which is also a fantastic name and a great way that a kid would actually think about it.
Yeah, well, they call it the Upside Down because when it's introduced to them, she flips the board.
Wait, also, amazing scene.
Yeah,
a lot of the big reveals and stuff in the show are really good. When the scene where 11 is trying to explain where what's his name?
That's the only character. He doesn't show up very much.
What the hell is his name? Will Byers.
Will.
when she's trying to explain where Will went and where the monster came from, she takes their D&D board, flips it over, and they're like, "Oh, it's the upside down. I understand now." And then they're like, "So what has him?" And she puts down the scary figure, and it makes someone putting a D&D figurine down on a board. It turns that into an intense reveal scene, which is one of the most memorable scenes in the entire show. Is just that her explaining the mechanics of the world, basically.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
They honestly, they use D&D very well throughout it. You actually get a really good sense of who, in the first episode, you see them playing a game of D&D, and you learn exactly who the kids are when they're playing this game. Like,
That's true.
You figure out, it's really deftly done. You know exactly who they all are, in like and how they handle a situation that's happening in D&D.
Yeah, and then that stuff comes up.
It comes up,
and it like they're all true to the characters that were established very vaguely, but strongly in the very first scene of the show.
It's really it really is impressive. Like the show does a lot with these things, with these kids.
Nothing is wasted in this show.
But then we another one of the plots, because there really are three. I'd say.
Basically. They take, some of them takes more time than others to connect and whatnot. But basically by the end there's three main
the second
plots.
Most interesting plot is probably the adults.
I was gonna say that too. Yeah.
The adults are, and this has the benefit that their characters, both Renoa Riders and David Harbors, I can't say people's names, I apologize.
Yeah. Well, I just laughed because you said Renoa instead of Winona, and Renoa isn't she the love interest from Final Fantasy VIII?
I don't know. I don't watch I hate Final Fantasy VIII. Making enemies.
Renoa.
I only ever saw the Spoony Ones review of it, so I.
Oh wow! There's an internet throwback. The Spoony one.
The Spoony one. That guy. Shit. I looked stuff up on him. We'll talk after the podcast because that could be its own podcast.
Wow. We'll go down the rabbit hole.
Go down the rabbit hole. Shout out to that guy who's a lot bigger than us.
And a lot better.
But their story has the benefit that like their two characters are really interesting. Action Cop is my dude.
I love
Action Cop. He's so, it's kind of, this is what I say when it's not horror. Action Cop is so competent.
Yeah.
That it is borderline impossible. Like, there are situations where people have guns to him and they're like, we're gonna shoot you if you do anything, and he manages to like knock them all out.
Yeah.
And like, he's just a guy, he's just a sheriff. He's just like this dude who there's no reason he can do this stuff, but he does it, and he's so fucking cool.
Yeah. He's very cool. And also beyond that, he's a pretty deep character.
Yeah.
You get, I like how they did his character because you get hints that there's more to him throughout the story. You get these little things. You find out that he's divorced. You find out that there's something tragic happened to him. You find out that his daughter died, but you don't get like a lot of specifics on that stuff until literally the last like episode. 20 minutes of the last episode.
But it hits hard.
But the final reveal of again, we already talked spoilers, but the scene showing him rescuing Will from the Upside Down while he has flashbacks to when his daughter died of some probably cancer in the hospital is really emotionally impactful and like reveals more about his character in like a really cool way.
He manages to go from like in the first episode he just seems like he's the uncaring cop.
Oh yeah.
But even then you get vibes that the dude is a lot smarter than you would think. Like he's the only one who I remember he's the one who pieces together a lot of like he's like this happened here, like there was a break-in, he ran to this, he ran here. Did you always have these bang marks on your wall? Like he's the only one in the whole police force because the other police are just incompetent.
Yeah.
He's the only one who like knows what he's doing, and he still doesn't seem to really care.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. Like he basically makes the adult story for me. Like Joyce is interesting, with what she's doing. But it's not fair because the Action Cop is the one who goes and does all the really fun. Like he's the one who does basically all the investigation.
Yeah, he pieces together most of the conspiracy. But the cool thing is that by the end of it, none of them have the full picture until all of the stories finally meet up at the end, where they all get a better understanding of what's going on.
Which involves the third story, which I would say is still very solid, but it is the least interesting of them all.
Yeah,
is the teenager story.
The problem to me with the teenager story, which is John and Nancy.
Yeah, and Nancy's douche boyfriend.
Oh right, Steve Harrington,
who I met. And this is a real big credit. I really didn't like him, but by the end, I was like, you know what?
He has a hell of a redemption at the end, and it doesn't feel forced. It feels very natural. It feels good.
Yeah, sort of like you end up liking Steve.
Yeah, but basically their story, they seem to have the least amount of basically each of them has I just thought of this. Basically, the kids have the most information about Eleven because they're with Eleven. The adults seem to know the most about the government
organization
and the general facility and like the experiments and that sort of stuff. And the teenagers are focused on the monster.
Yeah, and admittedly, they're pretty badass. Like the teenagers are badass because everyone else's response to things. Like the kids are trying to find their friend. The adults are trying to figure out what happened to Will as well. Like they're all trying to find Will, but the way they go about it is different. The teenagers are like, we're gonna go kill this. We're gonna go kill this
extra dimensional monster that we know nothing about except that it's already killed at least 3 people.
We're
gonna go hunt it down. We
don't get to see all of them, but I think it has to have a body count of over like 6. It kills like these hunters in the woods or something.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a body count, man.
I mean, and also, what's her friend's name?
Oh,
Beth.
Beth.
Is it Beth?
I think it's Beth.
Oh, I want to say it's Beth, but I actually want to check to make sure I'm not stupid.
She doesn't have a thing.
No. Not Karen. That's not her. No, Karen.
No, dude, it's like Beth.
Fuck, it's gotta be
Beth. Justice for Beth, I think.
Justice for
Barb.
Barb.
Not
shit.
Beth.
Yeah, it's Barb. Justice for Barb, because poor Barb is Nancy's friend who feels horrible left out at this party while her friend is upstairs abandoning her and getting laid. And poor Barb just gets unceremoniously
murked.
Yeah, destroyed by the monster.
Yeah.
And oh man, yeah, I feel really bad for her because everybody's celebrating like, yeah, we got Will back, like it's a happy ending. You get to the end of the story, it's like, yay, we got Will. Everything's good. Oh,
wait a minute.
Oh, that's right.
Barb died.
Barb is dead.
It's all right because Barb was.
I mean, she's not exactly like a deep, important character.
She's
but
there for like 10 minutes. But
poor girl, man.
You feel bad because she's trying her best to be like, hey, let's be responsible adults.
Poor girl, yeah.
And then she totally dies for it. So the moral of the story is don't be responsible. Instead, drink and have sex.
Right. And the monster won't get you.
That's Doomloaf. That's Doomloaf approved.
That's like that's like the opposite of all other horror things.
Yeah.
If you bang in other horror movies, you get killed. In this, banging is the only way that you don't get killed.
It's all about morality, man. We'll get to that. Horror in general.
Yeah, that's true. And this definitely doesn't use that horror trope. There's no sort of like, oh, as long as you're a good person, the monster won't get you. There's absolutely none of that, because the first victim is like this kid who's like, as far as we can tell, like the nicest kid.
He's like
he seems like such a nice guy. Like I'd love to hang out with them and play D&D with those guys, except that they were probably playing first edition.
They were playing first edition or second edition, probably first edition. First edition sucks. Sorry. I've played it, I can say,
but hey,
it sucks.
Thacko?
Fuck Thacko.
But that explains why Will was able to one-shot the big bad guy,
Demogorgon with a fireball,
because he's a wizard. The
Demogorgon
super broken.
The Demogorgon is the prince of all demons with like 2 baboon heads. He rolls the abyss. He's a monster. He's like, the big bad.
But don't worry, as long as the wizard rolls high enough, he can kill it in one shot.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
But the teenagers have probably the least interesting stuff, just because they're not really piecing together a mystery so much as just trying to survive and hunt this thing down.
Yeah, and also a lot of their story gets I don't want to say I don't want to say bogged down, but like it gets kind of distracted. A lot of
teenage drama.
Yeah, it gets a little distracted by the teenage drama, and the teenage drama is
good,
is well done.
Like it's fun. I'd say again, the actors, the people playing them, like Nancy and Jonathan and Steve, they really did knock it out of the park. They do fantastic. But there's only so much that I can see about teenage drama before I'm just like, there's a monster that's eating people.
We got bigger fish to fry.
He took pictures of you. That's weird. Shouldn't have done that. Maybe we wait until the monster's done to deal with this.
Yeah. Well, and then they don't deal with
and
it.
And then it's just like, it's okay. And it's like, no, Jonathan, that is not okay.
If anything, that's kind of one of the things that bothered me a little about the show, just a tiny bit, is the fact that Jonathan took pictures of Nancy through a window in her underwear, and Nancy is just kind of... She's not even weirded out. She's just kind of like, aw. Like, she feels bad for him.
Like, admittedly, Steve's reaction is what it would be, which is like, I'm going to beat the shit out of you because you took pictures of my girlfriend in her underwear at my house.
Yeah.
And then Nancy's like, don't do that. It's like, Nancy, Jonathan's kind of weird.
I don't dislike Jonathan.
No,
I love John.
He still comes off as a good guy.
But like he got what he deserved for
what he did. But in all fairness, they kind of address it in that Jonathan does seem to genuinely look back and say like that was a wrong thing to do.
Yeah, he does apologize for it.
But it's weird that Nancy's reaction is just that she's kind of weirded out, and it's like you should be a lot more.
She's hardly weirded out.
Yeah, like you should be a lot more.
She seems almost disappointed, like that he would do something, so she's just like, oh, John.
It's like, come on, man. He's the weird dude who like takes I don't know. But they have the least interesting story, I think.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's the cast.
That's the cast of Stranger Things. The monster in Stranger Things is the Demogorgon. And honestly, it's probably one of the weakest parts of the show.
I have to agree with you on that, because it not only does it I'll say this, in the beginning, for the first few episodes, it very much follows the I think what is a good horror
rule of horror. Don't show.
Exactly. The more you see the monster, the less scary it is, which is something that Cloverfield. I remember Cloverfield specifically doing this very wrong at the end of the movie, because because the monster is scary throughout that whole movie, until you see it, and then it's like, oh, it's just some big thing. Which and that's kind of the same thing with Stranger Things. The monster is a lot scarier when you have no idea what it is. When all you know is that it is large, can basically teleport, and eats people.
And it's at least slightly intelligent.
Yeah, when that's the only thing you know about it, it's really suspenseful and pretty threatening and scary. But once it's like free and like running around and chasing people and getting shot at and going,
it loses a lot of its horror.
Loses a lot of the mystique, a lot of the mystery. The mystery is really what you're there for, I feel like, and not so much like what the monster looks like.
If you're interested in a movie that does that right, and it's no surprise because it created a genre, the Blair Witch Projects is a movie where you never see, spoilers, you never see the Blair Witch. It might be there at the end of the movie, maybe.
And for all you know, throughout that movie, it might not even be the Blair Witch.
It might just
it could be anything.
It could just be the people going crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing, is you have no idea what it. I've seen it. It was scary. I was terrified of it.
But that's an example. That's an example of like where that rule is followed to a T. Another classic movie that does it is Aliens. Aliens, you don't get a really good view. Alien, sorry.
The first one.
Aliens
does not.
Yeah, Aliens does not. Well, Aliens is more of an action movie, but Alien follows it really well. You don't get a good look at the thing. It's always scuttling in the dark.
I think at most you get like a longish shot of its gross face. But like besides that, you almost never see the entire thing until like the very end.
But Stranger Things does fall into the not the trap, because they still do it well.
And they do wait until the end, to their credit. They wait till mostly the end to show the monster in its entirety. But yeah, once you see the monster, it's a lot less scary. And then it becomes more about the the personal,
the drama, the personal drama.
Yeah, and the mission to get Will. It's not about oh, scary monster, look out for it. It's like, all right, we got to save Will.
It does that transition very well. Like, you know, very Will.
Oh my god.
You do genuinely, you know, feel like you're invested. By that point, you're invested. It doesn't matter that it's not spooky. You're invested.
Yeah, so
did you know a tangent? Did you know that when the people who made this, the
Duffer Brothers, never heard of them. Also,
which they originally wanted to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which you can very much tell. This
it shows. It shows.
The It movie took what is clear some inspiration from this. Mm-hmm. And this took a lot of inspiration from it. Which, by the way, is a clusterfuck. We'll get to it.
What, the new movie or the
new movie's fine. The book.
Oh yeah. Never read it.
But they approached a lot of studios with this, like Stranger Things, when they had the idea, because they got turned down to do it, and a lot of the studios were like, "Yeah, we'll let you do it, but you have to get rid of the kids. You have to age up the kids to be like teenagers." And that was the one thing they wouldn't do. They're like, "We will not get rid of the kids," and it totally works for them. Yeah. Just little tangent.
You need the kids. It really doesn't work the same without the kids, because and I think a lot of what a lot of people liked about this movie is the sort of 80s nostalgia feel. It's a very nostalgic movie, and it's the interesting thing to me is it has the sort of synth electronic soundtrack.
The soundtrack to Stranger Things
people associate with the 80s, but movies from the 80s don't actually have soundtracks like that at all. Like the Spielberg, Stephen King sort of vibe that this is going for is people. That's what everybody says. They're like, oh, it's Steven Spielberg 80s that sort of thing, and it is, but it's less. To me, it's less about how those movies actually were made, and more like how they feel. It's more a reconstruction of how those movies felt at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And but also the soundtrack, Stranger Things soundtrack is really good. But yeah, that's what I was saying, and that's an interesting thing about it is that it combines that 80s nostalgia movie feel with what a lot of the actual music from the 80s sounded like, or at the very least what we think music, what the general consensus or feeling of music from the 80s was. Whether or not it's a faithful recreation of the 80s,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. It's not supposed to be. It's not a period piece. It's about the feeling of an era, and really more than that, the feeling of like being a kid and like having this world and that's larger than you, and these fantastical things that you imagine when you're a kid,
and having to deal with the situations.
So, and because of that, it's not a movie that can only be enjoyed by people who grew up in the 80s, or it's not a show that can only be enjoyed by people who grew up in the 80s. It's a sort of
timeless.
It feels nostalgic. It feels nostalgic to anybody. I think.
Yeah, any adult could look back at this and feel.
Honestly, that might not be true for very long, because when these the kids these days, this isn't really I feel like this isn't really what their childhood is like anymore. The internet really changes things.
It does. You know? We're not really equipped to talk about it.
No, we're probably not, because we're in our early 20s and we only have that
even our childhood wasn't exactly like how it is in Stranger Things. But it was I remember it was
closer to it than being a kid is now.
Yeah, now,
we didn't have Minecraft back in our day. We grew up in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. That was our childhood.
Yeah, I remember riding my bike and getting into a lot of fucking trouble. But this
I remember the first part. I didn't get in trouble. I was a good boy. I was a good boy.
Yeah. But that actually, it is funny that you're talking about the 80s, because that's the new hotness.
Oh yeah, 80s nostalgia is very in. It's very in right now.
Which leads us to the next part of the podcast, where we're going to talk about it. So this one actually, spoiler warning, because this is unlike Stranger Things.
This is new.
It is new.
New-ish.
Judging by the box office, you've already seen it.
Probably.
But if you haven't, spoiler warning, because we're, I'm no holds bars, we're going to just talk.
Yeah, about it. Which, you convinced me to see.
On the premise that it was not spooky. Like, or it wasn't scary.
Yeah, it is spooky. It is not like pants-shittingly scary
I think
like The Conjuring or Blair Witch Project was to me.
Says
to me.
You, yeah.
To me.
I'll say this. I think this is the new trend of horror movies. I think It and Stranger Things are going to be more of what good horror is. There's always going to be bad horror, like Unfriended or the second Facebook ghost movie.
Yeah, right?
There's 2 of them now. Because
Lord knows
we needed that.
Lord knows we needed more social media spookiness. That's like, the new thing too.
Oh my! I guess it's so weird. That's even a thing, that haunted Facebook. But
right.
Whatever.
Should be a haunted MySpace, because MySpace is like
MySpace is already a ghost town.
Got him.
Zing.
We're about 10 years too late for that zinger.
But I think that the new form of horror is going to focus on this. It's going to be kind of a combination of trying to be nostalgic and spooky, which I'm totally down for. That, as long as you do it well, whatever. But so it's a movie that everyone's talking about it. I'm sure that the listeners have heard of it, but in case you don't, it's
there's a
killer clowns from outer space.
Yeah, killer clown attacks a town. And kids gotta go take it down.
Kids gotta go. Yeah.
Started rhyming through that.
He made a rhyme and it ain't no crime.
Fucking Christ.
But yeah, it is. It's actually very similar to Stranger Things, which you can tell that Stranger Things was inspired by it.
The way that I think of it is basically hardcore Goonies.
Yeah.
It's like if the Goonies was rated R and like really dark and violent. That's basically how I think of it.
Yeah, I mean it is kind of, it's not super gory, but there are moments where you're like, huh.
Yeah, it's just gory enough.
Yeah, it's gory enough to be uncomfortable.
It's got to be rated R, right?
Oh, it's definitely rated R. Yeah, dude, they compare their like dicks and shit.
I mean, that doesn't mean it has to be rated R.
Well, it is.
I would say the part where the kid gets his arm ripped off is a little more, making it R rated.
Yeah. So, as a movie, it's actually very similar to Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. It basically is a group of kids that have to come and save their town from an evil monster, right. Even down to the fact that they have to save one of their friends at the end.
Yeah. From a like trans-dimensional, horrible, unknown monster that like is sort of like a like beyond human understanding sort of thing. Where, has all these magical powers.
They're actually less equipped to deal with the situation than they are in Stranger Things.
Well, in Stranger Things, they have a secret weapon of girl with amazing, ridiculous psychic powers.
But even Action Cop, adults don't believe them. Like in
that's true. There's no adults. that help in it.
There's no adults that are helpful because it's implied that like the clown is doing something to the town. Yeah, it's implied that the reason like it doesn't come into it, but the town is haunted or by the clown. Like, you remember the scene where they're on the bridge and like the bullies are literally cutting their name into the fat kid, and then you see like a car comes by and like they don't stop, and then a balloon comes out. It's supposed to imply that the adults, there's something wrong with them. The clown is doing something to them.
I hadn't thought of that. That like the town is so messed up because of Pennywise's presence. Like, he's doing something to make the town so horribly fucked up, which it is.
That's the kind of, there are differences between Stranger Things. For one, the town of Derry is fucked up, even without the clown. It's real fucked up.
The town of Hawkins seems quite nice.
Quite nice. I'd live there.
Like
they've got a kick-ass science teacher.
Oh man, I love
him.
Love that dude.
But the
I would be so much more into science than I am now if I had him as a teacher. Instead, I had Mr. Williams.
Come on, Williams. But the town of Derry is much more messed up. It has a dark history. It has blatant racism. It has,
child abuse.
A lot of child abuse.
A lot of abusive parents.
Yeah.
Several abusive
there's
parents.
At least 2 I can think of off the top of my head who are just abusers.
Yeah.
And the kids just have to deal with this thing on their own because they can't turn to anyone. And they really don't know what's going on. That's the other thing. There's no conclusive unlike in Stranger Things where like they find evidence and they're piecing together a puzzle, the kids in It are trying to do that to some extent. Specifically, like one kid is trying to figure out the history of the town and what it is, but they really don't know. Like by the end of it, there's no real guarantee that they don't really know anything about it. They know that it's really old. Yeah. And it wakes up every 27 years, and it causes problems. Like, it kills people and then goes back to sleep. So, yeah, the one of the big differences between this and Stranger Things is that the kids really don't have an idea of what they're dealing with. And the audience doesn't really either, which kind of helps, because the monster is... I'd say that it is spookier than the Demogorgon, even though it breaks the rule we were talking about. That's
true. You see it very clearly all the time.
Multiple times.
The reason that works for it is because we don't know its true form. Because it can shapeshift, which is like its main power. And like that's why it can remain scary even though we see it a lot. Is because we're seeing it through the eyes of these kids, and it's specifically transforming into things that they're scared of.
We also don't know why it's doing what it's doing. Like, the Demogorgon is an animal, and it's very clearly an animal that's hunting and eating and laying eggs. We know basically what it's about. Yeah. The monster from It is just this boogeyman that's coming out and just eating kids, and we don't know why it's doing it. It's just doing it. Yeah. And it's also intelligent. Like, it makes deals. It wheels and deals with people.
It can speak. It talks to people. The monster in Stranger Things really just is an animal, basically. Yeah. It doesn't seem to think, doesn't seem to have any sort of intelligence. It just
It's got animal cunning, but it's not, it falls into traps.
That sounds like a D&D term. Animal cunning.
It does have animal cunning, though. Like, it's hunting. It's hunting.
Yeah.
The thing from It isn't. Pennywise, the dancing clown.
Which is his full title.
Yeah, the great.
Funnily enough.
It's doing this stuff seemingly because it likes to. Which just kind of is instinct, just is more skin crawly. The fact that like this thing is hunting kids in the worst possible way. It is like doing things that
by
are
like making them scared first, by scaring their wits out before actually eating them.
And then it eats them. It's kind of messed up. But again, the cast of It, much like Stranger Things, is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and the what's his name? Finn Wolfhard.
He's in both.
He's
fantastic in both.
You can really see that Stranger Things wasn't like a fluke. It wasn't just a coincidence that he was really good in that. He was really good in It too. Although I'll be honest,
he's playing a different type of character as well.
Very different. Yeah. I also didn't have the best viewing experience for It.
We went to a drive-through. Or drive-in.
If we saw it at the drive-thru, that would be even worse.
Wendy's.
You see it on the little screen that shows your order.
It was a drive-in. It was not pristine.
Yeah, not the ideal way to see the movie. But there were two things. I could tell that I would have liked the movie a lot more in the theater. I could also tell that I would have been way more scared if we had been watching it in a theater.
Yeah.
It's not like Stranger Things, it is not an especially terrifying movie. I would definitely call it a horror movie, but it's not especially scary a lot of horror movies are.
Unlike a lot of horror movies where you look at a single shot and it tells you like this is scary. Like in there's iconic scenes like in Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street where like you watch it and you're like, this is scary. This is how you know it's a horror film. Scenes like this. It, as far as I'm aware, when I was watching it, I didn't feel like there was any... That might make noise. I didn't feel like there was any significantly spooky scene. I just felt like it was an overall tense... what would be the term?
Movie.
Well,
experience.
It's got... Throughout the whole thing, there's a very consistent... overbearing tone to the film. There's like this, it's palpable.
It's definitely
you feel this. There's no one moment where I was like, "Ooh," but there was a lot of like it's just everything feels off. Everything feels a little bit off.
It's a very suspenseful movie more than it is a scary movie. Or it's more of a thriller than it is a
lot of that does come down to the guy who plays Pennywise. Bill Skarsgård. He fantastic. I love me some curry but
everybody's got fond memories of the original Tim Curry.
Best scene that better be with the adults is Pennywise is like in a library and he's like, "Hey, do you have Prince Albert in a can?
Oh.
Well, you better let the poor guy out." Aha, aha, aha. It's the best. You need to watch it.
Wow.
I blew out the audio. It's fine. It's worth it. It's worth it. Just look up that scene. In fact, stop listening to the podcast. Go watch that because it's so
Prince Albert in a can.
It's so funny.
Yeah, but it overall good movie.
Good movie.
Like
I
Stranger Things, very good.
Not as good as Stranger Things.
You didn't like it as much as Stranger Things?
No.
I didn't either, but I didn't really get to see it.
Well, we should go and see it again. Like,
I don't want to go to the theater again.
Oh no, when it comes out.
when it comes out, we'll watch it again.
But yeah,
I'll definitely like it more probably.
It's still not as good as Stranger Things. I think that's partially just because Stranger Things has more time.
Yeah.
Like one of the big problems with it is the fact that there are so many kids.
That's really true. Yeah.
A lot of the kids, specifically one poor kid, gets his entire role taken away by another one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They kind of get lost in the shuffle. The kids, the losers.
There's like 4 of them that are important. You care about.
I don't even know a single one of their names except Bev. She's the girl.
Bev, Billy. Billy's the main character.
Is Billy Finn?
No.
Is Finn which one is Finn?
Finn is
Rich,
I think.
I like him.
I think it's Richie. And Ben is the fat one. Yeah, Richie is Finn. But the one who got his role completely taken is Mike. The African American kid is in the books. He's the one who's investigating the history of dairy.
Oh, but they gave that to the fat kid.
They gave that to the fat kid because the fat kid is more important as an adult.
Oh.
Because he's a part of this love triangle thing, and
right.
it's kind of a big thing, right?
Which they are going to do for the sequel, which they teased at the end.
Yeah.
By concluding the movie with Chapter 1.
Yeah, which was good. But Mike, it really does suck because he just doesn't get a lot to do, and it's sad because Mike is that actor. I honestly, of all the kids, I thought he was one of the best ones. He's just not there very often.
Yeah, I didn't even get a good enough impression to say whether he was a good actor or not because he just didn't have a whole lot to do throughout a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
But and I think that is kind of the problem is that there's more kids and less time. Yeah. In it, but they're fundamentally different. Mediums.
It's hard to really compare them. Also, I mean, in its favor, it's all of its antagonists are better, including the one villain. There's a bully who is insane. Like the bullies in much. If you've ever read or watched anything by Stephen King, the bullies in his things are like psychopaths.
Yeah, inhumanly
psychopaths.
Yeah.
Like, they're not kids, they're insane. But the guy who plays Henry Bowers...
Makes you wonder what happened to Stephen King when he was a kid.
It must have been bad.
Some horrible bully he must have had.
Yeah, but whoever played Henry Bowers, I think Nicholas Hamilton, the off chance you're listening to this, you did fantastic. You played that... Honestly, the psychopath bully is really good. Like, just fantastic.
Is that like a common fixture in Stephen King books?
Stephen King's you can play the Stephen King drinking game where it's like, does the story take place in Maine? Take a drink.
Yes.
Does the story involve a struggling writer? Take a drink. Guess what Bill is in the future.
When he grows up, he's a struggling writer?
He's a world famous horror novelist.
Wow. So he's the self-insert character for Stephen King?
Stephen King does that. Watch read Dark Tower. Where he literally is in the story. The town is there's an overly religious family. Bingo. That's Ben's family. It doesn't show up in the movie, but that's what he's about. Yeah. It's a whole thing. You can look it up, Stephen King drinking game. I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll play it one of these days.
We'll die.
Oh man.
But it is it is really good. But it's just not fair to compare it to Stranger Things.
Yeah, even though we've been doing that for the last 20 minutes, it really isn't fair because they are different mediums. One's a TV show that, or a web television show technically, that's meant to be watched in long pieces or all at once. Honestly, like watching it over the course of like 2 days was pretty much the best experience I think I had watching it. Watching one episode at a time is just like, that's just not enough.
It's a lot like One Piece, baby.
Oh no, we've only got a few minutes left.
We can't get into One Piece.
Yeah,
but,
we don't have time. We don't have enough time left to talk about One Piece. But one of these days,
trust you me, that's gonna be a podcast.
One of these days, if we find 4 free hours,
we'll talk.
And we're both big fans of One Piece, by the way. If audience
not
coming
up right now.
Well, actually, I did make one video on One Piece, which is one of my least viewed videos, but
but damn it all, if it's not the best.
Man.
One Piece is fantastic, but. It's much like that, where it's like if I didn't get to watch all of Stranger Things at once, I probably
wouldn't have liked it as much.
Yeah. Like, because there was a point where, like you said, I stopped watching it for like there's like basically a year between when I had watched it, just because I got to a certain point and I was like, I don't know, life happened and I just stopped watching it. But being able to watch it all in succession was fantastic. It made it a lot easier.
If you haven't seen it, definitely the way to watch it is as much at one time as you can reasonably do. I wouldn't say do all of it in one night.
No, but within
it's a little too long for that.
A good weekend, maybe.
Yeah, a weekend, a couple days. That's the ideal way to see it.
So quick recap of this podcast. Go watch Stranger Things. Go watch it. They're both good.
Yeah, that's basically all we need. For
so,
the end. Also. I think last time we didn't do this, but we should end. I think we should end with not with Colin's Corner, not with Colin's stupid question. I mean, if you have one, we could do that.
I always have stupid questions.
Oh boy, I was gonna say we should end with what the next one is gonna be about. Because I assigned you Stranger Things, so it is technically your turn to give me something to watch that you've seen. But if you don't have anything prepared, I
have both.
Okay.
One of them though is something. Okay, the thing I'd like you to watch, and this is because of what we just were talking about. Mm-hmm. I'd actually like to assign you the It miniseries.
Oh no, the
old one.
Okay.
I think we should watch it just so we can have a better. There's a conversation to be had there because people are comparing the new It to the old It, which is of course they're going to do. They both have strong points. One of them's better. It's the new one. But I think it'd be interesting. I think it'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I mean, really the only thing I've heard recently about it is that it doesn't hold up. I know there's a lot of people who have a lot of nostalgia for it, but like all I've heard is that I've heard from Movie Bob that it doesn't hold up.
I don't know if it ever did.
If it was ever good.
I mean, it is... here, I'll tell you this. That was the first horror movie I ever watched.
Wow.
It was the one... I used to be a crybaby who hated horror movies, and then I watched it, and I was like, well, they're not so bad, because it wasn't scary.
First movie I ever saw that scared me, you know what it was?
Was it like Robin Hood or something?
It was Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
I was terrified of Mars Attacks.
Anyway.
I legitimately thought it was a horror movie.
Colin's Corner. Colin's Corner time.
Boy. Here we go.
So,
we'll make this one quick.
Well, okay. So, imagine you were in a situation like It. You and your friends are being hunted down by this like extraterrestrial thing. You don't know how you do. Pick a group of friends. I want to know from your audience how you would go about dealing with that thing.
With it specifically?
Yeah, it specifically. Assume you don't know what its deal is. I know that's kind of hard to remove yourself from it, but like, assuming you don't know it has the weaknesses it does, blah, blah, blah. Do you think you could survive? Do you think you could deal with the situation? And more importantly, would you want to live in a world where that thing could exist afterwards?
No.
All right.
Well, my answer to all of that is probably not to whether we could survive. Assuming it was, let's say it was like you and me when we were kids. How old are they? Are they like
they're like 13 or 14.
Oh, so they're in like middle school.
Yeah, no, they're like going into high school, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought they were younger than that.
They might be. I mean, Bev. I think they're 14.
Okay.
Pretty sure Bev is 14.
I thought they were 11. Whatever.
No, they're definitely older than 11. Maybe in the books they're younger, but in that movie they're definitely
okay. Yeah, in that movie they're
like Bev and Bill are definitely like 15.
So like I don't think we would do particularly well. Mostly because I am and was and am such a huge fraidy cat.
I think we do okay. I think we'd at least survive it for the 27 years. Some of us would die. If it was just me and you, like, we're done because it's just two of us.
Well, yeah.
But assuming we have like a group of friends, assuming we get my buddy Robbie, we're fine.
Oh well,
we got
okay.
We got Robbie.
If we have Robbie, the 6'4", 280-pound black man, who was probably that big in middle school too,
but all muscle,
then I think then fine. We'll probably be okay. We can just go like
considering how they end that movie, we'll be a-okay.
Yeah, don't they just kind of beat it up?
Shit out.
Yeah, they just kind of beat it up, and that's how they win
with love and friendship. But yeah, that's Colin's Corner this week. Tell me in your comments how you and your friends would do. You'd probably die, but it's okay.
But if you're really competent, like say Action Cop,
then you might Action Cop would take him down in like 2 days
at any age. Yeah. Doesn't matter when you try to get Action Cop in there, he'll take him down. He's always been competent.
I think that's it for this week. So thanks for listening, guys, and peace.
Yep. See you later.